Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alyssa Shalander. I'm with the Minnesota Auto Dealers Association. Madam Chair, we represent the Minnesota businesses. We're the retailers in Minnesota who are sort of caught in the crossfire here between the automakers who manufacture these vehicles and the proponents of this bill who want them to give us a different mix of vehicles here in the state of Minnesota. But in any case, we are the ones that stand to lose the most under Senate File 674. Madam Chair, first I want to just maybe clear up a misconception about what the California rules will do. Mr. Hyland did an excellent job of trying to explain exactly how that works. This is a regulatory scheme that regulates what the manufacturers deliver for sale into the state of Minnesota or any other California state for that matter. It regulates them at the point of delivering the vehicles onto our showroom floors. These vehicles don't just magically become more efficient. What the California rules do is that they will make the manufacturer meet a certain average for the fleet and mix of models that they're going to be requiring dealerships to buy. So it's not that, you know, we're talking about the Hummer or the, you know, bigger vehicles that don't be fooled. This bill isn't going to allow us to have the exact same mix of vehicles that are just somehow magically more efficient vehicles. That's not how this regulation works. This regulation is going to require manufacturers to force us to buy a different mix of vehicles regardless of customer demand. It's a key difference, members, between what the federal government requires auto manufacturers to do versus what California is requiring auto manufacturers to do under this regulation. The federal government is going to require auto manufacturers to manufacture a fleet of vehicles that has better miles per gallon standards as a fleet. That means the federal government is, the way that regulation works and how it will work into the future now that we have proposed rules, is that will require manufacturers to decrease the level of carbon emissions in total because they're decreasing it as it comes out of the factory. What the California regulations do is it requires manufacturers to adjust their sales mix and reach a target of miles per gallon in their fleets within the state borders of every state that's a California state. So all of you know how we get at reducing carbon emissions and what we're trying to do. I don't have to go over the whole, point of reducing carbon emissions. The point of reducing carbon emissions is to reduce them in total, not just to reduce them here and allow them to get displaced into the next location. That is not working toward a goal. That is just displacing carbon emissions. So when we are talking about reducing the miles per gallon averages under the California system, we are really doing ourselves a disservice because we are harming Minnesota businesses, and we are kidding ourselves if we think that this is going to have any effect on reducing carbon emissions. It will not. So, members, let me just go back to the point about us being franchisees for a minute. We are in a franchised relationship with these auto manufacturers. That means if you're a Ford dealer, the only place you get your supply is from Ford Motor Company. We are required to buy the inventory from Ford Motor Company in the quantities that they tell us that we're going to buy it in. We don't get to just sit and order the vehicles that we want to have on showroom floors. That is not the way the system works. So what is going to happen here is if the auto manufacturers want to sell vehicles in this state, should we be a California state, they're going to want to sell vehicles in this state. They are going to send us a mix of vehicles that allows them to comply with the average targets that California has set up. So it's not necessarily going to be based on what our dealers have consumer demand for. So that necessarily means that we are going to have restrictions on our most popular categories of vehicles and surpluses of smaller, lighter vehicles. And that is the only way that we can get that the manufacturers can get the fleet-wide averages to comply with the averages that have been set by the state of California. So we can't get there from here without product restrictions, and I just can't stress that enough. Californians buy more cars than trucks. Minnesotans buy more trucks than cars. So the only way manufacturers can adjust their mix is to supply us with more cars than trucks, with more lighter vehicles than heavier vehicles, with vehicles that meet those targets that are set by the state of California. Again, if you remember this, these targets have to be achieved within the borders of our state. The other thing that you should keep in mind, and this is something that we really haven't talked about a lot, but because California itself has recognized that it's very, very difficult for smaller manufacturers, smaller fleets of vehicles to achieve these averages, California exempts manufacturers that do not sell more than 60,000 vehicles into the state of California in a particular year. California sells 8 times as many vehicles as Minnesota does. So in California, those manufacturers that have to comply with this regulation are all the American manufacturers, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and BMW. And everybody else is